if you didn't know, I started a series last week called Prepared Not Scared. And I really like, the whole like end times talk and how that sounds like all woo-y. It is about the end times. But basically what it is it's about trying to talk about what's currently going on in the world and what we can expect to happen based off of what God has already told us and how we can, I'm sorry, I just hit the mic, how we can do that without being afraid about it, because sometimes it instills a lot of fear in people. So trying to make sure that we can go about it in a certain way that doesn't instill fear. So, we're going to be talking about a lot tonight. I don't know if we're going to get through everything tonight. So part 2 might be like a part 2A and a part 2B. We'll see. But I'm going to say this a couple times, so don't worry. But if you need to, because I'm going to try and like power through a lot of this. So we're going to kind of like go through it pretty quick. If you need the verses for tonight, any verses that we're going to be going over, any passages that we're going to be going over, even if all I do is hit on them, because a lot of them, I'm just going to hit on them. I'm not necessarily going to read them out. I'm pretty much for the majority of them, just going to like say, this is what it is, for reference. So if that is the case, go to my profile. You just click on my picture wherever it is at. I think it's on this side when I'm on the laptop. I could be so very wrong. But you just go ahead, you click on one of these. My face is somewhere. You click on it. It'll bring you to my profile. I should still play in the background. And the very most recent post that I made has all the Bible verses for tonight. You can screenshot that and it'll have everything for you. Tonight we are talking about prophecies. That's what we're diving into. Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you for sending all that stuff. You're so sweet. So I'm just waiting. I know Rachel was wanting to hop on. I know she was helping with the kids. We'll just get started. Again, as always, apologies if I look this way. This is where my laptop is, which is where like the actual live is. Like this is where my TikTok studio is over here. So if I look over here, it's because this is where the comments are. So I'm looking over here to make sure that I keep up on comments. So if you send something and I miss it, by all means, feel free to let me know. I'll start diving into the recap so we can start getting into that in case anybody wasn't here last week. Last week we started part 1. And so again, basically prepared, not scared, how to deal with everything that's going on in the world. And that will happen without being afraid of everything that's going on. And basically I wanted to start this for anybody who wasn't here last week. I wanted to start this entire series because I was seeing a lot of posts of, especially moms, because I deal with a lot of moms, right? So a lot of my feed is moms, and how just everything with what's going on in the world was very scary to them. And I understand that. And it caused a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And this is speaking from somebody who has been down that road before, who dealt with that, is because I have 3 littles. I have 3, 5 and under. So I get it. And then, I brought it before God, and he fortunately was so gracious in walking me through it, very patient with me as I went through it. And the thing that I talked about last week is that when we have that fear come into our lives about what's happening, we let it halt us. We let it stop us. We let it trap us in that fear. And then we end up becoming stuck and we become stagnant. And because of that, we then refuse to read about it. We refuse to learn the truth about it because we don't want to confront what's causing the fear. That the trigger is talking about the end coming, right? And like I talked about last week, there's many things that are going on with that fear, whether it's, fear of a family member, fear of your children, fear of maybe even yourself. Maybe there's some doubt. Maybe there's like the fear of missing out on so much, right? Maybe there's whatever it is that's triggering it, right? And so basically, what we talked about is how you have to know the information. The more information you know, the more powerful it can be for you, and it can bring you so much peace. Because God even tells us very clearly, don't be afraid. I've got you. Like, yeah, all this stuff, not pretty. It's not exciting. However, I've got you throughout this all, and I'm not going to let anything happen to you, okay? I've got you. Trust me. We're in it together, okay? Now that doesn't mean that you're not gonna face hardships, okay? That doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy breezy, lemon squeezy, right? But that means that at the end of the day, God's got you, okay? And so created this series where we're gonna be talking through, and let me pull up last week's just so I can kind of recap what you guys can expect as far as the flow for it. So last week we did back to the beginning. This week we're talking prophecy. Now, this week is probably, I don't know if we're going to get through all of it. There's quite a bit, so I don't know if we're going to get through all of this, to be quite honest. But we're going to get through as much as we can. And so it might be 2 weeks of prophecy, or it might be 3 weeks. It really just depends. Then we're going to go into the signs and the prep. So what are all the signs that we are told to pay attention to, or that are showing things of Christ coming and all these different things? And exactly what does God mean when he says, prepare, stay awake, stay alert? What does that actually mean? And what is he expecting from us, type of thing? And then we're going to wrap the whole series up with the hope and the beauty of it all. Because even though it can seem a little bit fearful with everything that could happen, the beauty of it is that the hope and the joy of what it means, and how we get to come back to Christ, and how you can find that peace and that joy throughout all of this. And that gives you some, hey Taylor, and how it gives you the encouragement to face what's going to come, and you can do it in a bold manner, in a bold, fiery manner for God, right? And that way you can present it to your kids, you can present it to your family, you can present it to your friends, you can present it to whomever without that fear, and feel a little bit more, I don't want to say confident, but maybe confidence the word, in approaching them with it. Okay, so let me go ahead and talk about what we can expect for tonight. Okay, so again, this is part 2, heading into the prophecies. Okay, so quick recap from last week. We went back to the beginning. We talked about the beginning. Okay, we talked about how God created everything, why we were created, why the choice was made, the decision for us to have choice was made, the cost of that choice, and how God knew giving us choice would lead us to fall, but he had a plan from the get-go to restore us and to bring us back to him. Hey, Rachel, you have not missed much. I'm just doing like a recap. So don't worry, you haven't missed much whatsoever. So you're good. I'm just kind of recapping from last week. And then we talked about how when things are broken, sometimes it has to be broken, right? To build it back into the way that it was meant to be. And when that happens, God can make something so beautiful from it, right? So that's what we talked about last week. I'm going to kind of give you the disclaimer again. Test everything. Okay, I am human. The commentary, the studies, the pastors that I have gotten this information from as well, my understanding, we're all human. Okay, so if I say something where you're like, that doesn't really seem right, go test it. Test absolutely everything, okay? And then bring it to me if you're like, hey, you mentioned this and this just doesn't seem like it lines up. By all means, like, I am not the person that's going to stiff arm you and say, you're wrong. I will listen to you. We can figure it out together. And if I'm in the wrong, then I'm in the wrong. And I will totally own up to that, okay? That helps me learn too. So test everything, and not just with me, but with other things that you see floating around as well, okay? Because you have to pay attention to everything that's out there. You have to pay attention to what people are saying about it. So test everything. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 tells us that, okay? Test everything and hold on to what is good, okay? Again, bring every thought and feeling that you have before God, because what we're going to talk about and we're going to start getting into, depending on how far we get tonight, we're going to get into Ezekiel 38. If you know anything about Ezekiel 38, it's one that's causing a lot of stress for people. A lot of people are kind of not panicking, but kind of getting to a little bit of a worried state about it. So if any feelings arise in you, bring it before God, because that fear isn't from him. That worry is not from him. That doubt, that anxiety, the questioning, that's not from him. Okay? That is not. Okay? That is your flesh. That is the enemy. That's his little minions trying to distract you so that you don't learn the truth and that you stay stuck in your fear. Okay? So bring everything before him. Let him be the peace. Let him be the rest. Let him be the comfort. A comfort, a peace, a rest, unlike anything else. Okay? And also, again, just a reminder, go to my profile for all of the verses we are going to be talking about tonight. Because like I said, when I first started talking, y'all, like, look at this. look at this. We have all of this front and back to talk about, okay? So I'm going to be like powering through some of these, and some of these I'm not even going to read. I'm just saying this is the reference. If you want it, this is where you go, okay? So go to my profile. I should still play in the back. You just got to click on my face up in the corner, wherever it is for you guys. Click on it. It'll bring you to my profile. The most recent post that I have has everything that we're going to be going over today. Just screenshot that and you got it, okay? You don't have to worry about trying to like flip to all those pages or write it down. It's right there for you, okay? If you are a note taker, this might be the night to start taking notes, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead, pray, and we are gonna dive into this, okay? So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us here tonight. And thank you again just for placing this series on my heart. God, this is your doing. This is what you wanted and what you desired. And God, I just pray that because of that, everything that I say tonight comes solely from you. God, I pray that everything that is said, that is brought about, that is talked about, God, that this is what you want them to hear. God, that this is what you know somebody needs to hear. God, if there is something that I have written down that you don't want me to talk about, let it leave my mind. If there is something that I haven't written down, but you want me to say it, God, give me the words. And God, again, I thank you for how intricate you made your plan. God, you knew from the beginning, you knew everything that would unfold, and you had a plan for it. And you even knew that this would cause some people to get that fear instilled in them. But God, you've given us every answer we need right here in your word. And so God, for anybody that pops on tonight, whether it's for 0.5 seconds or for it's the whole entire thing or somewhere in between, God, I just pray that you give them the encouragement to not let that fear take over, to not let worry, doubt, anxiety, stress, whatever might come, don't let it come in this room. Don't let it enter their mind. And if it does, remind them to bring that to you. Take every thought captive. Remind them to bring it to you, God. God, allow us to have our eyes opened, our ears to hear. God, soften our hearts as we dive into your word today. Allow us to take in the words for what you intended them, not for just words on a page. God, again, I thank you. I thank you for tonight. I thank you for all that you have done, all that you are doing, and all that you will do. God, I love you, and it is in your mighty name that I pray. Amen. All right, so we are going to go and dive on in. So first I want to talk about the importance of prophecy, okay? So fulfilled prophecy is kind of how God like signs his name, right? It's kind of how we get to see God like acting out, really, not like in a bad way, but like doing what God does, right? I mean, obviously there's so many other ways that we can see God working, right? So many other ways. But for those who maybe don't believe, this is a great way for them to see, right? Now, whether they choose to like still acknowledge him or not, that's totally up to them. But it's a good way for that to happen, right? God handles all the details, and we've seen that. And some of all of the examples that I'm going to give you had very, very specific details in them. Again, go get those verses. I'm going to say them here for you guys. But if you read through them, it is very detailed on how it has happened. And when you go look it up, first and foremost, all of these have been accomplished. All of them have been accomplished. And not only that, but exactly how God said they would happen. And it's not just like it's being said, it's not like people are just like, oh yeah, like that happened. No, historically written down as evidence that these did happen. Whether or not they wanted to acknowledge that it was prophecy, though that's a different story, but historically these are recorded, okay? So God handles all the detail. He has everything in there, and nothing is done by accident. Nothing is done by accident. Okay, God's word always prevails. So if it's in his word and he says it's going to happen, he's going to do it, whatever, it is going to happen. It's going to come through. Whatever he says it is, it will. Okay. Just a couple of things when it comes to prophecies. Prophecies can sometimes be warnings for people who are rebelling. Maybe not even rebel, but just people so that they are aware of what's to come, right? So we have been given prophecy so that we can kind of know to an extent, right, of how everything's supposed to happen. okay? Back then, and you'll see with some of these examples, these were warnings of like, y'all are slipping up, y'all are rebelling again. So here you go, here's a warning because this is coming your way, right? Another thing is that this is all of these prophecies, they're future, right? They always talk about the future. It's never the present. It's not necessarily the past. Prophecy is future, right? Future that hasn't just been written down. It has been written down. It has either been fulfilled or it is being fulfilled. It is being made. We are seeing the future that was talked about coming forth, or we've seen it come forth, okay? Prophecies can also be a guide for us. Like I said, it is a good way for us to learn about what's to come so that we can be prepared and not scared. Think about it when it comes to stuff with like natural disasters, right? Like tornadoes or whatever it is, right? When it comes to those, there's always something that comes out and says, hey, in a couple days, your weather has a very good chance for tornadoes or for a hurricane or for whatever it is. Get prepared. It's not there so that you can get scared. It's there so that you can know what you got to do in order to be prepared and what you need to pay attention to as far as what the weather's happening, right? So prophecy can also be something that helps us and guides us, okay? So I want to go through a couple of quick examples. Again, I'm not going to read these verses, okay? So either go screenshot that post or, write them down, but we're going to kind of, fly through them. All right, so example number 1, the destruction of Tyre. Some people call it Tyre, I call it Tyre. But in Ezekiel 26, he talked about this. He accurately described how this would happen with not just like in general, but 2 different people carried this destruction out. He had King Nebuchadnezzar, who took siege for 13 years. He took siege for 13 years. And then we had Alexander the Great come in and do the rest of the destruction. And the thing is that Tyre was a nation that people thought would never be destroyed. Absolutely, they thought it was indestructible. And here's Ezekiel saying, nope, it's going to happen. And this is exactly how it's going to happen. And if you read up on how King Nebuchadnezzar and how Alexander the Great did it, it is exactly down to the detail how Ezekiel prophesied. And then we have the fall of Jerusalem. And this is talking about the temple, right? And we saw this in Luke 21, 5 through 6. Okay? This was fulfilled by the Romans in 70 AD. So it happened just like Jesus said it would. No stone would be left, right? And what did the Romans do? They came in and they took down the whole entire temple. No stone was left. None, okay? The suffering servant. Oh, Isaiah in 53. If you have not read Isaiah 53, go read it for Easter and then read the Easter story, okay? Because Isaiah 53, this is well before they ever even did crucifixions. So nobody back then knew what a crucifixion even was, and he described it to a T. He described how Jesus's posture would be, that he wouldn't speak, he wouldn't defend himself, how he would be with the thief, all these different things he described in such detail. And then we go forth and we see everything happen. We see everything happen with Jesus exactly how it was described in Isaiah 53. Jesus not only fulfilled this prophecy, but he embodied it. Okay, and then also to go right along with that, the birthplace of the Messiah. Micah 5:2 prophesies that came to be. Then we have the rise and fall of Babylon. I got to put something down on this, sorry. Rise and fall of Babylon, okay? We see in Isaiah 13:19. This is described as well as in Jeremiah 51:37, okay? And additionally, if you go back to that Isaiah 13:19, verse 20, if you want to tack one more onto that, verse 20 even goes on to say, this will never be rebuilt. This nation will never come back, okay? Never come back. And if you look at where it used to be, like if you go to like the region nowadays where it used to be, nothing. And even back then, I forgot who it was. Who was it? There was somebody who actually tried to rebuild it, and it couldn't happen. They couldn't make it happen So again, that prophecy right there was also fulfilled that, nope, it's not going to happen again. So don't even try. And then we see that this was fulfilled by King Cyrus. Okay, now King Cyrus, he was a Persian king. And if you kind of want to know a little bit more about him, there was another prophecy that specifically dealt with King Cyrus and Babylon, but also with how he would basically like bring Israel out of captivity. Okay, and that's in Isaiah 44. This I don't think is on... This is not on my post. I don't think it is. So I would write this down in case you want to go look at this. You don't have to go look with this, but if you want this, Isaiah 44, and it's verses 28, and then Isaiah 45, verse 1. Okay, so Isaiah 44, 28, and 45:1. Those talk about King Cyrus. But anyway, that's kind of like a different prophecy. King Cyrus himself, if you didn't know, he's the one who went and he conquered Babylon. He destroyed them. He relinquished Israel from captivity with Babylon. And he was the Persian king. So if you didn't know, he was the king before King Ahasuerus or Xerxes, however you want to pronounce it, came into power. And then Esther, yeah, you get it? Okay, so he's a good guy. He actually told all of Israel, like, hey, don't hang out here. You know, go back to your homeland. And there were a couple of reasons why some of them stayed. Okay, there were a couple of reasons why some of them stayed. But he said, I'm not going to hold you captive. Go back home. He's referred to as God's anointed. And I think he was also referred to as God's shepherd. I believe he was also referred to as God's shepherd. But yeah, so that's a cool one. But anyway, moving on, the regathering of Israel, which is in Ezekiel 37. So if you want to read that before you read 38, I mean, we're going to go into 38 today, but that kind of like talks about the regathering of it. So in 70 AD, like I talked about, the exile began. And then in 1948, they were finally acknowledged as a nation. 1948, they were finally acknowledged as a nation. So it came to fruition. Daniel's 4 empires, okay? Cool stories. If you haven't read them, go read them. Daniel chapter 2 and 7, all of that came to fruition. And then the betrayal for 30 pieces of silver, that was actually prophesied in Zechariah 11, verses 12 through 13. So as we can see, all of these came. God didn't just throw all these stories out there to make people go, ooh, and on, try and shape up. I mean, yes, warnings, but when he says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So if all of these things have happened, and some of them people were like, that would never be possible. If these things happened, the rest that he says will happen, which is a hope knowing Christ will return for his bride. Okay? So let's do like a really quick flashback, okay? We talked about this last week, so I'm not going to go into too much depth about this, but God's covenant with Abram, okay? We discussed this, Genesis chapter 15, okay? There are 3 parts to this covenant that I want you guys to like really pay attention to, okay? So there was a promise of land, right? He said, go where I call you because I'm bringing you here and you're going to have all this land, right? So a promise of land, which ended up being the promised land of Israel, right? Then there was this lineage, okay? So he had this promise of lineage, and this lineage was, I'm going to make a nation out of you, okay? So not only was he promised a son when he's at his like a very, very old age, right? He's promised a son. And from that son will come a nation. And then from that nation, there will be a descendant, and he will raise up the Messiah, which is the 3rd part of the covenant, the Lord, okay? There will be a Lord that comes out of all of this, and he will be the Lord over all, and that's going to be the Messiah that is our Christ Jesus, okay? So I want you to remember those 3 because they play into a lot that we're going to see happening, okay? So I want you to make a note of this. What God creates, the enemy will counterfeit it. He will try to create something to mimic it. He will take what God created for good, and he will try to twist it and make it some way and counterfeit it, okay? He wants to take that land. He wants to destroy the lineage. Think of how many times he tried to break this lineage up. All the different things that kept happening that he tried to destroy the lineage. I mean, think back to Abram, and I think I mentioned this in study today. Yeah, today, Rachel? Maybe it was today, or maybe it was last week. I think it was today. But when Abram, and I'm going to call her Sarah, okay? When Abram and Sarah, Rachel, you know what? When they were getting told to like go away, they went to Egypt, right? They went to Egypt, and he told his wife, Sarah, hey, tell everybody you're my sister, because they're going to, get rid of me. If you get what I'm saying, they're going to get rid of me if they find out you're my wife, because you're so beautiful. So they told everybody she was his sister, which half truth. But anyway, so Pharaoh took her to be his wife, and God was like, no, 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 no. The Messiah is coming from his line. I can't have this be foiled. I can't have something that's not righteous, that's not holy, having any part of this line. So he sent plagues and plagues and plagues, all right? And then Pharaoh was like, dude, what are you doing? Why did you lie to me? Take her and go. I want no part of this. So all these different things happen that the enemy is trying to break that lineage up, right? And we see that countless times. That was just one example, okay? So I made a little picture, and I don't think y'all can see it that well. This is what I'm talking about, but I don't think you guys can see it that well. Anyway, I want you to picture this. So you have Abram, right? Remember how what God creates, the enemy counterfeits, right? You have Abram. He has Sarah, okay? When Sarah thought, because back in the day, you have to remember, when Sarah mentioned he sleep with her maidservant, Hagar, you have to remember that back then, surrogacy was actually a thing that they would do. So there was part of her that was acting in disbelief, absolutely. But there have been some commentaries that have also said there's a chance that she thought maybe this is how God meant for it to happen. Like, this is maybe how it was supposed to happen. So maybe like we have to make this decision, something along those lines. And maybe that's also why she did it. So unbelief, taking it into her own hands, all those different things. But surrogacy was a thing that they would do back then, okay? And it would be with the maidservant. However, Hagar, she was a pagan Egyptian. And Abraham should have said no, but he went along with it. And so we have Sarah, we have Hagar. So now he has two women, right? Counterfeit. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael, okay? Now, if we go to Genesis 16:12, this is exactly what God said about Ishmael, okay? A wild donkey of a man, his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility towards all his brothers, okay? Remember that, okay? So we have Ishmael from Hagar. Back over here to Sarah, the woman that he's supposed to be with, right? Eventually, God fulfills the promise, and they have Isaac, okay? Now, Isaac was chosen by God. Isaac ends up having 12 sons, and these 12 sons become the 12 nations, right? Oh, but let's go look at Ishmael. Ishmael has 12 sons. So we have two women, we have two sons, we have 12 grandsons from each, right? And there's one covenant. So what do you think the enemy is trying to go after? Who can get all of it first? He thinks he has a shot. We know he doesn't, but he's going to do everything he can, right? Like, he is just scrambling over here, and he's doing everything he can. What God creates, he counterfeits. Let me catch up on comments, real. She didn't have faith. That's right. She didn't. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, let her off the hook. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm just saying back then that was a custom that was done. So there are some people who have said, like, she might have also had in her mind, what if the promise God made that Abraham was going to have a son was maybe through surrogacy and not through me? So that's what some people just pointed out, but I full-heartedly do believe it was out of unbelief, because she could have done that about. So, and not only that, but Abraham being the leader of his household should have been like, woman, no, what is God's in your mind? You'd have not missed much. You have not missed much at all. Don't worry about that. No worries. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, we'll keep going. All right. Okay, so side note, real quick, I'm not going to go into much depth about this, but if you didn't know, Isaac was kind of like a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ, if you didn't realize that, because think about it. God told Abraham, like, hey, go get your son, your beloved son, go get him and bring him up to this mountain and you're going to sacrifice him to me. Then pause, all these mountains are by where Abraham and Isaac were, right? And God said, nope, I don't want those ones. I want you to go over to this one. And guess how long of a trek that was for them to get to that mountain? 3 days. Then when they get there, what did Abraham do? He put wood on his son's back. And what did his son have to do? He had to climb up. And then when they got up to the top, he was going to give his son over to be a sacrifice, right? But also God stepped in, God intervened, okay? But that same exact mountain is the mountain that Christ was crucified on, okay? But that's a side note. Go study that if you want some more information. It's so cool, okay? So now let's fast forward before we dive into the big prophecy, okay? Let's fast forward. So let's go about 2,400 years later, Muhammad is born, okay? Now, this information that I'm about to give you, Josh Howerton did an amazing, why am I blanking on it? Sermon on it. And so that's where I got this information from. I just thought it was so stinking cool. I had to share it because it connects with so much, okay? So, anyway, this is what I want to talk about. He talks about Hamas, and that's what I wanted to bring up, okay? So you have to understand this real quick, okay? So Muhammad was born about 2,400 years later, okay? He claimed that an angel appeared to him with a revelation on religion, right? And claimed all these other things of like what should have happened. Basically, everything that should have happened with Ishmael and not Isaac, okay? But we are told in Galatians 1:8 this. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one preached to you, let him be eternally condemned. So it wasn't an angel that appeared to him. It was a demon disguised, okay? Now, remember what I said. What God creates, the enemy counterfeits. So now we have this totally different religion that is mimicking what God has already established, right? But a false one, okay? So then Islam was born. Now, if you didn't know, Hamas comes from Islam. Hamas was descendants of Ishmael. There's the connection, okay? Remember, Ishmael will forever be hostile towards his brothers, okay? So, descendants of Ishmael. Translated, Hamas was an acronym that meant Islamic Resistance Movement, okay? So that's what it is translated. Basically, they were attacking the lineage of Isaac in a fight over the land, and their motto was always, our God is better. So remember what I said when God created that covenant with Abraham, right? There was the land that he promised, the lineage that he promised, and the Lord that he promised. And what do they have? They're attacking the lineage of Isaac. They are fighting over the land. They want Israel's land. And not only that, but they're saying their God is greater, right? Their little G God. Thank you guys so much for all of the love and the heart me's. Portrait of Christ. Absolutely. It's so cool when you look at it that way. So cool. Like, it just shows you how much God already had planned. And he's like, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of an Easter egg here and a little bit of an Easter egg here. And like, you just see it. It's so beautiful when you see it. Okay. Now, one thing that I also want to mention is that Hamas is actually used in the Bible. Like, the word itself is actually used in the Bible. And it is used to describe, when you translate it to Hebrew, is actually used to describe violence, evil, and wrongdoing. And you actually see it in some translations. You see it back when Sarah did the whole, like, hey, Abram, you should go, be with my maidservant. When Hagar does get pregnant and she starts treating Sarah badly, they actually use the word Hamas in there to describe the hostility that Hagar had towards her. So there's other places in the Bible too that it's used, but I just wanted to point that out because it's in there. And if that doesn't tell you anything about the connection, I'm trying to make sure my pages don't go flying as I do this, because I have my fan on. So, but anyway, it's flying everywhere. Okay. so I thought that was so cool. And that's what, I guess, Josh Howerton, he talked about that, and I saw that and was like, I have got to include that. I just thought that was so cool. Okay, so now this is the part where we're getting into the big prophecy, okay? I don't think we are going to finish this tonight. We can try, we can push through, we can see if we can do it, okay? But if you don't know, we're gonna go, if you have your Bible open, go ahead and get it, go ahead and grab it. If not, if you need all the verses from tonight, if you need everything from tonight, again, go to my page, you can click on my face, wherever corner it is for you, click on that, I'll still play in the background. My very first post that's up, my most recent one, screenshot that has everything that we've talked about, okay? And if there's a verse that I don't think is on there, I'll let you know if we hit one, okay? But we're now going to be spending our time in Ezekiel chapter 38. Now, before we dive into this, I want you to let you know that this is a big prophecy. This is actually one that a lot of people some are panicked over. I think it instills fear in people just because of the hint that it is the war that ends all wars. There's a lot of pastors, a lot of theologians that talk about it that way. So I just want to point that out, okay? Now, this has not happened yet. The prophecy that we're about to read has not happened yet. It is not here. However, personally, and again, this is personally, I believe everything that's happening right now over in Israel is setting the stage for this to take place. And I'll explain why when we get further on in. But just know that it is not here. Okay? It is not here yet. So I want to go through a couple of important terms first. So if you're a note taker, take some notes. This is going to help you understand as you read through this entire chapter, okay? So just some notes first as we get ready to go through, okay? So we're going to learn about Gog, okay? Not God, Gog, okay? G-O-G. Now, this is deemed as a leader, okay? Gog is a person. It's a leader, okay? And then there's Magog, which is the place of Gog. Okay, so it's basically the place that Gog rules over, if you will. Then there's also Meshech and Tubal. Okay, now these three areas, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, if you look at a map, these three are in the region that is currently Russia. Okay, so Gog is the leader. These regions, I'll let you take that where you want to take that, okay? So again, when we talk about those regions, we're talking about Russia and related peoples, okay? So again, this was Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, okay? And then Gog is the leader. Gog is leader. It's not a place. It's a leader, okay? Then we have Persia. Persia gets talked about. Persia is now current Iran, all right? Then we have Gomer. Gomer is current Turkey, okay? Then we have Cush. Cush is Ethiopia, Sudan, all right? And then we have Put, which is Libya. And then we have some versions will say it like the land of Togarmah I'm sorry, this word always trips up my tongue. Togarmah. I don't know why I always want to say it the other way. Some will say that it's the land of Togarmah, where others will say it's Beth Togarmah. But just know this is not necessarily a nation. Sometimes it's roped in with Turkey, but it's mainly talking about like an Armenian people that's to the north of Israel. So it's not necessarily a nation per se. It's like a group of people, if that makes any sense. Oh, really? I did not know that, Araceli. I did not know that. Okay, so if anybody needs me to say those again, let me know. I will definitely say those again. But those are important to know as you read through this chapter because it will bring so much context to what we can expect. And not only that, but it also, you will see how so much is lining up for this to actually happen. Okay. Now, do I know a time frame? No, I'm not going to guess on one. I'm not going to guess on that. So let's go ahead. Let's start reading. We're going to read 1 through 3, verses 1 through 3. first. So again, we are in Ezekiel chapter 38. Okay, we're going to read verses 1 through 3 first. Okay, so it says, "The word of the Lord came to me," verse 2, "Son of man, set your face against Gog," the leader, remember, leader, "of the land of Magog," Russia, okay, "the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal," again, the areas in the Russian territory, okay, "prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal." Okay, something I want to point out real quick before we move on is that in verse 2, it uses the phrase, for some people, I'm sorry, that fan is like making this blow everywhere. For some Bible verses or Bible translations, it will say, instead of chief prince, it will say prince of Rosh. Okay, now here's the thing. The phrase prince of Rosh has also been translated as chief prince. Mine says chief prince. However, Rosh can be used as an adjective or a place. So that's kind of like where people kind of get back and forth on it. However, translators and interpreters don't necessarily agree if it should be translated as chief of prince. So just know that, chief prince, I mean, just know that not everybody agrees with that. So just put a pin in that, okay? Just wanted to point that out real quick. And additionally, I wanted to give you this too, okay? A little sidebar. Magog is mentioned as a descendant of Japheth. So back it up to Genesis 2:10 or 10:2. Magog was an actual person, but a descendant of Japheth back then, not now, back then, okay? Japheth was the father of the Indo-European people, which now is like India to the shores of Western Europe. So they became the people that populated that, if that helps you get a better understanding of where all of this is taking place, okay? So Gog is mentioned also. Gog is mentioned in 1 Chronicles 5:4. However, it doesn't necessarily relate to what this passage is about. I just want to throw that out there, okay? So a lot of people believe Gog is like randomly being mentioned. This is like a random enemy that's going to come forth towards Israel that really had no stake in the game before. Like they really had nothing to say to Israel. They really were not a part of anything. They weren't like Babylon or Assyria or Egypt. They weren't like any of those people who were blatant enemies, right? So just so you can kind of know about that, if that helps any. So we're going to move on to verses 4 through 6. We're going to read verses 4 through 6 now, okay? So it goes on to say, "I will turn you around." So God is talking to Gog. Sounds weird. I'm going to say Yahweh. We'll say Yahweh. Yahweh is talking to Gog at this point, okay? "I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army, your horses, your horsemen, fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords." So basically, God is promising to bring Gog with all of his army and everything in his army. He is promising to pull them out against Israel, which I know for some people you're going to be like, why would he have a nation that obviously has a very large, vast, well-equipped army that is like ready to conquer? Why would he do this? And there are reasons that we find out later, okay? You'll see why. But basically, God is the one who is saying, I'm going to bring you out. I'm going to bring you out to go against my people. This tells us right here and there that even if Gog didn't have like a reason to go against them, it doesn't matter because there was a divine purpose in this. So God was going to intend for this to happen. So we can expect this to happen, right? Let me see if I had any other notes on that. Let me check in this. Okay, good. Just want to make sure there were no other comments. Okay. So like I said, God promised to bring Gog with all of his army against them, an overriding divine purpose in this. So it's not necessarily Gog at first doing it. We see later on that Gog gets evil intentions. But at first, God's the one who's going to pull him out. Okay. And a lot of this is actually repeated at the beginning of chapter 39, which we'll see when we hit that later. Okay. We also see that there was a large, vast, well-equipped army that we talked about, and that was also in verse 4. In verse 5, we're going to hit on his allies, okay? So, verse 5, let me move this little note. Verse 5 says, now these are the allies. Now remember, I already told you all these regions. If you need me to go over them again, I can go over them again. But verse 5 says, Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them. So this is the allies that are now starting to come together, okay? So we already know at this point in time, we have all these people coming together, okay? All with shields and helmets, also Gomer. Okay, remember, now we have all these different ones. We have about 5 nations right now together coming at Israel, okay? With all of its troops, and this is where I said sometimes it's going to say land of, mine says Beth, but Beth Togarma, from the far north with all of its troops, the many nations with you. So basically saying, you're going to have a lot of people with you, okay? So that was verses 4 through 6. So we see all of God's allies, right? So basically, Israel is surrounded. If you didn't know, if you look at the regions on a map with all these different places, Israel is legitimately surrounded. North, east, south, Israel is surrounded by these people who are going to come and try and conquer them, okay? With a vast army, all right? So then we also see that this is like pulling you out of Bible context, okay? We're going to go into news, okay? So this is where you're going to start to see connections taking place, okay? So come out of the Bible for just a second. Over the last decade, Russia has strengthened their ties with Iran. Remember, Russia is Magog, Meshech, Tubal. Iran is Persia, okay? Over the last decade, they have strengthened their ties. They have. There's a peace treaty. They train their military together. So you can see it's starting to line up, right? Sudan, which is also Cush, also has ties with Russia. In fact, I don't remember when it was, but Russia, they actually allowed Russia to build a naval base on their land. So Turkey worked together with Russia and Iran to overthrow the government of Syria, which is another nation, if you didn't know. If you look at a map, the top of Israel, its northern border, okay, there's mountains there. Remember that. There's mountains there. That northern border is shared with Israel and Syria. And you have Turkey, Russia, and Iran who came in and they overthrew the Syrian government. And so you can see I'm just saying, it's lining up, okay? Which I think, as like scary as it is for like a potential war, which by the way, spoiler alert, God steps in before anything happens to Israel, so we can rest, okay? But you can see, I think it's kind of cool that we are told that these nations are going to come together. We were told of a partnership, and look what we're seeing. We're seeing in the past couple decades that a partnership is coming together. Like, I personally think, as much as I don't want that, obviously nobody wants that stuff, but it's also kind of oddly cool to see a prophecy unfolding before our eyes, right? Maybe that's just me. All right. But just know all of that is taking place. Okay. That has taken place. So they are getting this alliance building, just so you know, it is happening. Let's go to verses 7 through 9. Verses 7 through 9, okay? I'm going to read it, then I'll go over some of the notes for it, okay? Verse 7, this is God talking to Gog, okay? Yahweh talking to Gog. Get ready, be prepared. He's literally telling him, you're going to do this, so get your stuff prepared, okay? You and all the hordes gathered about you and take command of them. He's literally saying, be the leader and get ready to do this, okay? After many days, you will be called to arms. I'm going to talk about that many days thing in just a second. In future years, you will invade a land that has recovered from war. What are we kind of seeing taking place right now? Okay. Now, I'm not saying that this is the war that's going to lead into everything else happening. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Things have been lining up, okay? Now, we don't know the time for sure, but just pay attention, okay? So, moving on to verse 8. Or yeah, we actually just read verse 8. Whose people were gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel, okay, which had long been desolate. They had been brought out from the nations, and now all of them live in safety. You and all your troops and the many nations with you will go up, advancing like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. Okay? So, let me talk about this real quick. All right? Okay. So, 7 through 9. The nations allied with Gog will come from every direction. Okay, we've already covered that. When I talked about where all these people were, we've seen they are surrounding Israel, right? They are coming from every direction, and we see that in 7 and 8, okay? Israel will be enjoying safety. They will be enjoying safety. We see this in verse 8. We're going to see it later on as well, okay? There is a potential site. I want you to note this. There is a potential site where this is going to take place, and this is talked about in verse 8. Now, remember that northern border that I talked about? Israel took over this hilly region in that northern region, okay, right along the border, okay, a hilly region, and it is called the Golan, Golan Heights. Okay, this is again a hilly region that Israel took over, and it's the north border that they share with Syria. And remember, who took over Syria? Or not necessarily took it over, but who kind of did out with their government, all right? Okay, so let me read you this real quick, and then we'll move on to the next verses, okay? So, talking about verse 8, this prophecy would not be fulfilled soon. Okay, so back then when it was being said, it wasn't going to be fulfilled like right then and there, right? But in the very last days, they would come against Israel after they had been brought back from the sword and gathered from many people. Now, I don't know if I want to try this word. I'm going to try this word. Yemen Rabim, okay? I probably butchered that. I apologize if I did. But this means, and is translated to, after many days, which we see in context, or which we see in the verses, right? Normally, this was used to express an indefinite time period, like a long time off, okay? Sometimes it was also used to mean the end of times. And this is cross-referenced. I don't think I put this on the verse post, so write this down just in case. This is cross-referenced with Jeremiah 32:14. So Jeremiah 32:14. Daniel 8:26. Daniel 8:26. And Hosea 3:4. Okay, Hosea 3:4. So it's cross-referenced with that. Okay, so I just want you to know that. But so that wording that we saw in verse 8 in the coming days back then didn't mean like in the next couple of days. It didn't mean that. So, hey, Kim. Oh, thank you so much, Kim. Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to move on. Let me make sure there's no other notes. The only other note that I wanted to make about those verses 7 through 9 is that this was going to be a great destructive power. Okay, a big impeding doom, if you will. Okay, so we're going to move on to verses 10 through 16. Okay, verses 10 through 16. This is what the sovereign Lord says. On that day, thoughts will come into your mind and you will devise an evil scheme. So remember, at the top, God said, I'm going to pull you out and cause you to do this. But now we're reading, as those days get closer, Gog, is going to start to have some evil schemes, okay? You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars. I will plunder and loot and turn my hand against the resettled ruins and the people gathered from the nations, rich in livestock and goods, living at the center of the land. Okay, pause real quick. This isn't part of these notes or anything, but if you didn't know, check out Ezekiel 5:5, and it actually talks about how God placed Israel in the center of all the nations. And how cool that is. Anyway, moving on. Verse 13. Actually, let's just hop over. Let's take, let's hop over to verse 14, okay? Therefore, Son of Man, prophesy and say to Gog, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In that day when my people Israel are living in safety, will you not take notice of it? Will you come from your place in the far north, you and many nations with you, all of them riding on horses, a great horde, a mighty army? You will advance against my people like Israel, like a cloud that covers the land. In days to come, O Gog, I will bring you against my land. Here we go. So that the nations may know me when I show myself holy through you before their eyes. So that the nations may know me when I show myself holy through you before their eyes. Okay? So he's using this on purpose. All right? He's got a plan. He's always got a plan. There's always a purpose in everything. All right? Let me see if there's anything. Hi, Landry. No worries. No worries. All nations will know. Absolutely. All right. So the notes that I had on this, guys, I think we're going to finish this. All right. So God did not drag an unwilling Gog to come against Israel. As we find out, he's going to have two thoughts of attack, right? He's eventually going to develop these two thoughts of attack. First being, he's going to attack because they were at peace and seemed defenseless. We see this in verse 11. The second thought is that he's going to attack out of economic interest, which we see in verse 12, okay? We are told again, okay, this is the second time we are told there's going to be a large number of troops. That's in verse 16. And then we see reasoning in verse 16 as well, okay? So let's go through 17 through 23. These are the last ones, okay? Last ones, okay? 17 says, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Are you not the one I spoke of in former days by my servants, the prophets of Israel? At that time, they prophesied for years that I would bring you against them. This is what will happen in that day. So pay attention. 18 through 23 is all what's going to happen, okay? This is what will happen in that day. When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused, declares the sovereign Lord. In my zeal and fiery wrath, I declare that at that time, there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. Okay, so as they approach these mountains that they are going to attack through, there is going to be a great earthquake, okay? The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute judgment upon him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him. Verse 23, we get reason again. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Okay, so that's what you can expect. Now, when we go over 39 next week, we're going to repeat some of that. We're also going to get some of like what's going to happen afterwards. So just know you're going to kind of hear it. You're going to hear a different verbiage, so you're going to get some different context with it as well. But let's dive through that stuff real quick, okay? So like I said, 18 through 23, we get what the battle's going to look like. God is going to cause a massive earthquake to happen. Verse 19, before the attack actually takes place. And we're going to read about this again in 39. That makes that very, very clear. Okay. God will cause Russia's weapons to misfire. We're going to see this again in 39. It's going to explain it again in 39. That's what he was talking about in verse 21. We are going to see that Russia's weapons, puzzle piece. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. So we're going to see that the weapons are going to misfire. They're going to explode on themselves, basically. And this is going to cause great confusion among the 5 nations. So much so, these nations are going to start attacking themselves. I mean, you get what you deserve, right? So also, God will send plague, bloodshed, torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur. We're going to see this again in 39. And actually in 39, something to be ready for is that God talks about who else he will bring the burning fire to. Okay? But he talks about this in verse 22 for this chapter that we're in specifically. Okay? And then in verse 23, we get the reasoning. Okay? So, I'm trying to not keep you guys on too long, so I'm going to rush through my last little thoughts. All right. So that was a lot. That was a lot, right? But you guys did so good going through that. So we talked about, let me kind of like bullet point it for anybody that hopped in late. Maybe you don't know. This was part 2 of the Prepared Not Scared series. And we are talking about prophecies, basically for all that is to come. We talked about the importance of prophecy, why it's important. We had all the different examples of prophecies. We talked about a quick flashback to Abram and his covenant in Genesis 15 with God, how there were 3 parts to it: land, lineage, and Lord, and how everything that God creates, the enemy counterfeits. And we saw that when Abraham was married to Sarah, slept with Hagar, had sons from both of them. Both of those sons had 12 sons. Isaac from Sarah, those 12 sons became the 12 nations. Ishmael, God even said he is going to have hostility towards all of his brothers. Like, he's going to have hands against everybody. Everybody's going to have hands against him. Yada, yada, yada. He had 12 sons as well. Okay, so very much so copy and paste, except a little bit different, right? Then we talked about how, fast forwarding to where Muhammad was born, how this created that separate idea of religion that basically copied what God had already placed in all of his word, but obviously twisted it, right? And how it created a false religion, a false God, a false everything, right? And then how after that we see that from that we have Hamas, and Hamas is the descendant of Ishmael. Remember, Ishmael will always be hostile towards his brother Isaac. From Ishmael comes Hamas. Hamas is a group that does not like Israel whatsoever, does not like them. And they're after the lineage of Isaac, which is Israel. They are fighting over the land, Israel. And their motto whenever they do anything evil is, "Our God is greater." They always chant that, okay? Then I'm trying to like power through this for you guys so you aren't on here too much longer. Then we dove into chapter 38, the prophecy. Now, if you need these again, I'm going to write these down for you, okay? Or I'm going to say them for you so you can write them down if you want. We dove into this. We talked about how Gog is a leader, okay? That's not a place. That is a person. Gog is a leader. However, Gog is the leader, or the chief prince, as sometimes it's put, of Magog, Meshach, and Tubal, okay? And these areas, Magog was the place of Gog, okay? These areas, if you look at them in terms of our maps today, these are the regions of Russia, okay? Then we have Persia, which is Iran, Gomer, which is Turkey, Cush, which is Ethiopia, Sudan, Put, which is Libya, and then we talked about how, as we went through it, that we talked about a lot of like stuff that was happening in the past decade, basically, about how we are told in this prophecy that these nations are going to come together. There's going to be a partnership, and that over the past decade, we have seen this happen. Okay, we've seen that Russia has strengthened their ties with Iran. We have seen a peace treaty between them. They're training their military together. We've seen that Sudan, which is Cush, has also kind of had a treaty with Russia. We see Turkey has worked with Russia and Iran. They have overthrown the Syrian government, which borders Israel on that northern border where the mountains are, where they are expecting this attack to basically take place. So talked about all that. Then we read through the rest of it. So kind of a little sidebar, if you want to know this, a little quick sidebar. In 1948, when there was the war between the Jews, Israel, and the Arab neighbors, which is Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq, most of those regions have relative peace with Israel now. And as we go through this prophecy, they are not mentioned. They are not part of this. Okay, just so you know, they are not part of this. They will not be part of this. They're not the ones mentioned. Okay, so speed run to finish that through. Next week, we will go through 39. And we'll kind of talk through 39, and through 39 basically kind of reinstates what's going to happen. But then it also talks about what's going to happen afterwards. So what happens after this takes place and what can we expect type of thing. And then after that, we're going to start talking about the signs and being prepared. Now, we might be able to start tapping into that next week. We might not. I don't really know. If not, it'll be the following week. And then we dive into the final part, which is the hope and the beauty in all of this that is happening. Okay. So with that being said, I tried to power through that for you guys. I don't want to keep you guys on too much longer. So let's go ahead. Are there any prayer requests? I'll go ahead and start taking care of that. Let's go ahead. Let's pray. I don't want to hold you guys up too much longer. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again so much just for tonight. Thank you for the series that you placed on my heart. Thank you for all the words that you have given me. God, I just thank you for this message. And again, like the series in general, because God, you know, there are so many people out there that do struggle with how they feel about what's going on in the world and all that is to come, and how's that going to look, and how does it impact me? How does it impact my family? What about those of mine who, my loved ones that don't know you? What about my children? Like, are they going to be okay? All these different things. And it can create so much fear. But God, you've told us time and time again, I've got you. I'm not going to let you go. You tell us, I go before you. I'm always with you. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Don't be afraid and do not be dismayed. God, you tell us that time and time again. And God, I ask that as we go through the series, bring peace to those who are learning about this. If they have that fear, if they have that worry, if they have that nervousness, that doubt, maybe they're struggling with something about it, God, I pray that you would wrap your arms around them. God, give them the encouragement to know that you will guide them through this, that you got this, that they don't have to worry about it. You tell us, don't lean on your own understanding. Our own understanding is going to lead us astray. It's going to put us in that box of fear. You tell us to rely on you, even when we don't know what's to come, even if we don't fully understand, because God, we can never fully understand. Your way of knowing and thinking and doing and understanding is completely something we don't comprehend, and we never will. So remind us to not rest on that, but instead rest on you. Rest on what you say and who you are, not what this world is trying to fill us with, not with the false truths that people are trying to spread about the end days or what's happening. Help us to have discernment, God, as we go through learning, as we go through all of these different things that you teach us. Give us discernment for what we see. Give us discernment for what we hear. And God, again, I pray for whoever stepped into this room and maybe they are battling something, whether it's related to this topic or it's not. Maybe they have fear with this topic, or worry, or stress, or anxiety. God, I pray again, wrap your arms around them. Give them peace. Let them feel you, God. Let them feel that peace rush over them. Let them feel that comfort rush over them. Let them feel the worry just leave their bodies. Remind them, I know the days ahead. I know the battles ahead. Remind them you've already taken them on. Whether it relates to this topic or it's something completely different, remind them you've taken on that battle and that you've won. God, allow us to keep stepping out boldly for you. Allow us to keep being strong and courageous and have the tenacity to keep fighting the good fight for you, not for ourselves, not for the appeal of others, not for this world, but God, solely for you. God, again, I thank you for everybody who came into this room, whether it was for 0.5 seconds, whether it was for the whole thing or just part of it. God, I thank you for them. And I thank you for the words that you have given during this time. And God, again, I thank you for all that you have done, all that you are doing, and all that you will do. God, you are so amazing. You are so wonderful. And God, it is in your amazing and powerful name that I pray. Amen. All right. That is it for tonight. I got to let you guys go. I don't want to hold you guys up too long. I kind of went a little bit over. Granted, we started a little bit late. We started at like 8:10, so I guess it wasn't that much longer. But next week, all right, 8 p.m., maybe I'll push it back to 8:15. Check the post. You'll see my little story thing. You'll see. We're going to go over chapter 39, Ezekiel 39. So if you want to read ahead, go ahead and read ahead, okay? Other than that, thank you guys for being here so much. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. I love y'all. I will see you guys next week, unless you guys want to come work out with me. Friday is our next one. It is early. It's 5:30 a.m. Eastern time, but then Saturday is 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So you get to sleep in a little bit if you want to come work out with me. But other than that, you don't have to. But other than that, thank you guys for being here. You guys are awesome. Remember, bring everything before God. Trust in God. Rest in Him. He's got you. Okay? Go get some amazing sleep. Talk to Him before you go to sleep. Give Him all your thoughts, all your cares, all your worries. All right? And I love y'all, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon.